We have lots to discuss here in today's video, including lots of off-season speculation for changes in trades, including the Montreal Canadiens. We get a little bit more clarity on what they may have at their fingertips for trade assets, including a first-round pick from the Calgary Flames this offseason that could help them make a significant move. Plus, we're going to take a look at some off-season speculation further around the New York Rangers. It appears Brock Boeser's time in Vancouver is coming to a close. We'll discuss comments from the player himself on his future, plus big changes likely coming in Buffalo. We had a fantastic game in the Frozen Four kicking off things today. U.S. college hockey, several injury updates around the NHL, and some more signings and other news around the league coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have lots to discuss here in today's video. We're going to kick things off with some news from the U.S. college hockey scene. The Frozen Four to determine the national championship is underway. And we had our first game in the semifinal just literally finished here as I started to record this video, between the Western Michigan Broncos and the University of Denver. And Western Michigan pulled off, I'm calling it an upset just because Denver is the reigning champions and certainly a very strong team. And this is the first time making it this far for Western Michigan. So they pulled off a double overtime 3-2 victory. I didn't get to watch all of the game, but I did see the last parts of overtime by the time I was able to tune in. But it was a very exciting game. Western Michigan deserves a ton of credit, and there's going to be a lot of eyeballs on players from the University of Denver now, including a top prospect for the Minnesota Wild, Zeev Buium. I do wonder if he's going to be signing with the Wild. I would expect he would be. He's already got a couple of years of college hockey under his belt. I don't think he really has anything more there to accomplish. So to me, it makes a ton of sense for him to turn pro, and I know Minnesota will accommodate to get him into their lineup. Could be a little bit of an X factor, to be honest, going into the final stretch here of the last few regular season games, getting ready for the playoffs, as the Wild are trying to clinch the second wildcard spot in the Western Conference, in which they're in pretty good shape to do, but it's not official here as of yet. So with Zeev Buium's college season coming to a close, I would suspect, like I said, we'll probably see a signing between him and the Wild if everything goes well sometime here in the next, I would think, probably 48 hours. I mean, I don't know how quickly they'll get that done. There's obviously going to be some other players on that team to keep an eye on as well. One that I do wonder about, who would be an undrafted free agent, would be goalie Matt Davis. Canadian-born goalie from Calgary, has had a phenomenal run with the University of Denver program. Obviously, was with the team in the last couple of years when they've had a lot of success winning championships. His numbers and his run there at the U of D is phenomenal. You take a look at this guy's stats, he's going to go down as one of the better goalies in U.S. college history, that's for sure. Of course, we know not all U.S. college goalies that have these type of numbers go on to have phenomenal NHL careers, and he's been overlooked and underrated for a while. So now that he's an undrafted free agent in college, I do wonder who might go after him. I would be shocked if he doesn't get some sort of an NHL opportunity. I'm probably going to have to start in the minors, of course, like all goalies do, but really, he's good enough that I think somebody's going to take a chance on this kid. Could be a steal. I mean, he's a little bit older, more mature. He's put his 4 years in at the University of Denver. He's played a lot of big games there. Like, they've been a really good team. So I'll be curious to see how things go for him. He, to me, one of the key players to watch out of that program. And of course, head coach David Carle had a ton of success there as well. Lots of speculation that he could be NHL bound. I know for sure he's going to have interest. There'd be no doubt that at least a few teams are going to reach out to him to see about a head coaching position this summer for next season. It's matter really is going to boil down to him, and if he wants to make that jump. We've heard a lot before where some of these college coaches like Carl says, you know what, in the NHL, you're hired basically to be fired. And the shelf life of an NHL coach is quite often, maybe 3 to 4 years, sometimes less. You get the odd one that goes longer than that, but it's not in your favor. Like, the odds are against you to last that long. So, he's got a great job where he's at, paid very well. Is it worth it to him? So he's going to have the right opportunity with the right salary and, longer term contract and all that. So he's going to be very selective in particular about his options when he does make that jump. So we'll be curious to see if that happens this year as well. So now that program and their school is done for the season, some key things there to watch that could have significant NHL impacts. A few other updates around the NHL today, a few updates regarding injury updates and roster moves. Tonight, of course, the Washington Capitals have their first home game since Ovi broke the goal record held by Wayne Gretzky. So they kick things off tonight with a major celebration with a special stick and a whole bunch of stuff there to celebrate Ovi tonight. Jacob Chychrun is missing the game for the Capitals this evening, who was out with an illness. In Edmonton today, they confirmed they've recalled defenseman Cam Dineen while sending back goalie Olivier Rodrigue. I know Skinner was getting closer, so I think that probably gives us an indication that Skinner should be ready to return. In Ottawa today, Nick Cousins practiced with a regular jersey. A couple days ago, he was on the ice with a non-contact. Now he's out there in a full contact regular jersey. So post-game or post-practice, he did speak to the media and said that his recovery is going well, had to speak to the doctors. Didn't know if he'd be able to play on Friday, which is their next game. That may or may not happen, but even if it doesn't, he likely would play in at least one of the games next week to get a little bit of game action in under his belt before the Stanley Cup playoffs get underway. And in Pittsburgh today, we learned that some of the players dealing with injuries, including prospect Rucker McGroarty and veterans Matt Nieto, Noel Cherry, and Blake Lizotte are all done for the season. They will not be back for Pittsburgh. Of course, their playoff hopes have long been crushed, so if they're dealing with injuries, there's no point in rushing back. So their seasons are over. We also got another signing today. This one's another interesting signing in Toronto, signing an undrafted junior player, and that's defenseman Blake Smith, of course, who went undrafted, became an unrestricted free agent. The 6'5", 225-pound left shot defenseman from the Flint Firebirds had a pretty good season. Certainly garnered some attention and is now under contract as a ELC with Toronto. So could be a good find there. I mean, obviously, one of those potential low-risk, high-reward type of scenarios. Team Canada for the upcoming Hockey Men's World Championships, which will be held, of course, every year in Europe, which will be getting underway in May, has named Kyle Dubas the general manager for that tournament. Of course, he's going to be getting assistance. Part of the staff as well includes Ryan Getzlaff, Scott Salmon, and a number of others. Of course, Doug Armstrong of the St. Louis Blues is the overseeing the whole program, so he's involved as well. And there is a selection committee of other NHL executives involved, which will help get the players selected for the team. We haven't really heard a whole lot of speculation yet on who has been asked. We know that obviously they would, at this point, for teams that are already confirmed to be eliminated from the playoffs, they would start the process of reaching out to players to gauge interest. Haven't heard a whole lot about any of that here just yet. The only thing I've heard for World Championships so far is the Sharks' William Eklund, I believe, is going over for Sweden. And I think that was about it. I know there was, Quinn Hughes and Thatcher Demko have both been ruled out for Team USA as well. Demko, and I know probably not in his best interest given the season he's had, but even Quinn Hughes has turned down USA's request for him to go, citing needing rest and recovery after the season. So he will not be participating there. One other piece of news today as well, Florida Panther defenseman Aaron Ekblad, of course, we know, is serving a 20-game suspension. Normally during that time frame, you can't be on the ice with the team until you're within 10 days of returning. The only problem is that with the suspension carrying over into the playoffs, they don't know exactly when those playoff games are going to be played, and there's no schedule yet. And they don't know when that 10-day mark's going to be. So what they've done is they've gone to the NHL and asked for an exception for Ekblad to be able to start practicing with the team now. So they agreed to that, and they used the second day of the playoffs as the starting point, and went 10 days back from there, which would be now. It might be off by a day or two, but it's really not a big deal. Ekblad will not be eligible to return to the Panthers lineup until Game 3 of the first round after serving his 20-game suspension for violating the performance-enhancing substance program. Of course, we know Ivan Demidov has been all the buzz in Montreal. There's actually, I believe, I don't think it's Tony Marinaro himself, but one of his colleagues that works with his podcast is actually at the Pearson Airport. They actually have a live stream going, and there's thousands and thousands of people watching online between YouTube and X to try to get a glimpse of Ivan Demidov coming through the Toronto airport. That's absolutely insane. I can understand from a fan perspective, you might be curious, but like, this seems a little obsessive to me. I mean, it's not like they're coming back, it's like a team coming back to an airport with a championship. You want to see the team or something. I get that, but, the reports today said that he would be meeting up with the Canadiens in Toronto over the weekend, because Montreal is on a back-to-back. They would go, which I believe they traveled today. So they are in Ottawa tonight. They'll play the Senators tomorrow, and then they'll go to Toronto and play the Toronto Maple Leafs on Saturday. So I believe he was going to be going to Toronto. They're going to be meeting up with him there, and then from there he will go to Montreal with him after that game, and then from there he should be able to get on the ice for the first time. And then I believe the goal right now they're targeting is for him to play Monday against the Chicago Blackhawks. So we'll see if there's any changes or not. If you are a Habs fan and you weren't aware, and if you do want to try to get a glimpse of Demidov, I'm not sure when he's arriving exactly, but clearly they're expecting his plane in Pearson Airport sometime tonight because, like I said, they've got people there with a live stream going, which is a little bit insane, but we probably shouldn't expect anything less. I know he's a big deal and everything, but I was shocked to see that. It's not something I'd be interested in watching. Give the young man some space would be what I would think. Let him come to Canada and get acclimatized here. But hey, that's just me. Now, lots of other off-season speculation around different things here. Let's start with some talk from Pierre LeBrun and Insider Trading on TSN. The New York Rangers. We've been talking a bit about the Rangers here in recent days. I know tonight they play the New York Islanders, and if they lose, which is not looking like it's going to happen, but they could be eliminated from playoff contention this evening, although at the end of the first period it was 4-0 for the Rangers, so I would suspect they're probably going to win that game, but hey, you never know. We've seen a couple of nights here, last couple of nights, some pretty wild lead changes. The Canucks, broke history, got 3 goals in the final minute against the Stars the other night. The Minnesota Wild game against the Sharks was insane for Marc-Andre Fleury's last regular season home start. They gave up a ton of goals. I can't remember the final score. I think it was 8-7 if I'm not mistaken. It's just absolutely crazy. Celebrini had a hat trick. Will Smith had a couple goals there as well. Just a crazy, crazy game. And of course, even the Flyers, I think the Flyers Rangers was 8-5 too. Just craziness all around. So can the Islanders come back? I don't know. Probably not, but you just never know. Crazier things have happened here in the NHL in recent days. But regardless of what the Rangers win this game or not, of course, LeBron talking about what he's hearing around the league and changes coming around this team. And he does definitely say from what he's hearing from different league executives around the NHL, the expectation is that there's a pretty good chance that head coach Peter Laviolette will indeed be fired. Not a given, of course, but, it seems like the odds feel pretty good from what he's hearing around the NHL. Now, when he was asked about GM Chris Drury, he said he feels like he's probably going to be okay, and that owner James Dolan kind of has a sense of loyalty there and doesn't think Drury's going to be let go. I'm surprised to hear that the loyalty part, because as we've seen, Dolan's reacted pretty abruptly in the past, and when he's not happy and he's not a patient man, typically, that they've made some pretty crazy, significant changes before. I mean, look at when they cleaned house with Davidson and Gorton and all those guys. So, what will we see in New York? Is Drury going to be allowed to fire yet another coach? I mean, that's going to be 2 coaches that I believe that he's hired, because I know he hired Gerard Gallant, he hired Peter Laviolette. Now he's probably going to end up firing both of them, and of course David Quinn before him. That's 3 coaches that he's going to be let go. I'll give him, a pass on the first one because he didn't bring him in. But some veteran players are definitely going to be asked about no trade protection or modified no trades and working some magic on some trades. Kreider and Zibanejad would be the prime too, as we've talked about here in recent days. But we'll see. Right now, its main thing is that we're probably going to see a head coaching change. Who's going to be next there in the Big Apple to coach that franchise? They've had so many defensive breakdowns. It's just absolutely insane. The players don't even know what to say anymore. After a bad loss, they just keep, they even tell the reporters, I don't know what to say. We keep having these breakdowns. Our structure's not holding up here. Defensively, they're an absolute mess. They've got one of the best goalies in the world in their net, and they hang them out to dry, left, right, and center. So you can only do so much with that with that team. So I do expect more change besides the coaching change. But like I said, a few veteran players that are expected to move on, and otherwise we'll see. I do expect more moves, but hard to say exactly what they will end up being. Now, in Vancouver, we got an interview with longtime Canuck Brock Boeser, who basically confirms that he's done. He's going to be moving on, and that he has absolutely basically no hope that the Vancouver Canucks are going to attempt to re-sign him, and he doesn't sound thrilled about it. Looking at a recent interview here, an article with Vancouver media, Brock Boeser said before the Dallas game, which of course was where they had that crazy comeback, he said, honestly, when asked if he was going to be able to re-sign and stay in Vancouver, he said, honestly, it's unlikely at this point. It sucks. It's unfortunate. I'm just trying to play good hockey, and I'll worry about everything else later. We all know it's been a roller coaster of a year, and just doesn't seem to have any hope that, the Canucks just don't seem to have any interest in making him any offers. I believe they had some discussions early on in the season. They do know what it would take roughly to sign Boeser, who's averaged 30 goals in his Canuck career, including a 40-goal season last year. I just don't understand, with everything this team has been through and the players that they have lost, why they're just not even really trying to sign this guy. He's easily going to get probably $9 million in free agency, and that's tough. That's a lot of goals to replace. I mean, I honestly hope we see management take accountability here at the end of season, because they have absolutely messed us up. They didn't handle the Pettersson-Miller thing well. They traded Miller. They didn't get a great return. The return they did get hasn't been able to really offer contributions. They make another trade with Pittsburgh, which is an okay trade, getting Marcus Pettersson, and then they sign him right away. But meanwhile, they keep leaving Boeser hanging here. They're going to end up being without JT Miller. They're not going to have Brock Boeser anymore. He's going to leave for nothing. Never traded him because they didn't like the offers. But I'm like, well, if you're not going to sign the guy, you might as well get what you can. It just seems a little bit crazy how this has been handled. Listening to comments from Captain Quinn Hughes, it sounds like he's certainly not ready to give up. I mean, I know he's going to need another contract, I believe, in another year. Some concern over whether or not he's going to want to re-sign and stay. And he certainly sounds like he wants to. Basically saying that, he's been entrusted to be the captain. He wants to see this through and feels like he owes that to them. But at the same time, you got to see the right moves being made to put a winning product on the ice. So, so expect Brock Boeser to be one of the bigger names hitting free agency, and it sounds like there's pretty well no chance he's heading back to be a Vancouver Canuck. There's also some feelings, of course, as we talked about before, some significant changes could be coming to the Buffalo Sabres. Kevin Adams has been there on the job now for 5 years, no playoffs. They've made a little bit of progress last year, got closer, taking a step back this year. Goaltending's going to be a big question mark for them. James Reimer's been good for them down the stretch here, but he's also older. Is he going to be, competing with Devin Levi as a tandem next year? Levi's still not at a point where you would hope he would have been more established and further along right now. Is UPL going to be a tradable asset? Last year they were happy with UPL, they extended him, and now things didn't go as well this year. Could he be the latest guy to get traded? I mean, you have to think that's a real possibility. I would think that, it's a high probability, but they have a lot of RFAs as well. Some of these guys are going to be looking for raises, and it's just a matter of, how do they make this team better? Because clearly, they're going to have space cap-wise, but, they get a lot of money that could get tied up in their RFAs, like Ryan McLeod secretly having a kind of under the radar, a really good year. He's looking at a 50-point season. You get JJ Peterka, proven goal scorer. He's going to be looking for a new deal. Jack Quinn, not going to be having quite as much leverage, but, another one right there, Bo Byram. We've talked at length about him. Some of these guys are going to end up going. I think Byron, UPL are your most likely trade targets, but something's got to give in Buffalo, and I honestly hope that they don't get too overconfident about the way they've played here over the last 15, 20 games. Because have the Buffalo Sabres been a better team down the stretch? Yes. They've played themselves out of the basement, so they've ruined their draft selection here. But, you can't tell players to lose. That's just not how they're wired, right? But you got to remember, when players and teams know that their season is lost, the pressure is off. You see players react and play differently. Responding to pressure that way has a big a big outlook. Have you seen other teams that are like, look at teams like even like Ottawa, Montreal, like Detroit, like teams that have kind of been in similar spot to Buffalo over the last 5-6 years or more, and look at how they played in the last few years down the stretch when they knew that the playoffs weren't an option anymore. They all did better, and then you get guys playing for contracts and whatnot. It's a completely different scenario. I just hope they don't get overconfident and think that, if we could just keep that up and do that all year, we'll be fine. Because last year I felt like they had an opportunity to make this team better, and they really didn't do enough. And I thought they kind of sat on their hands a little bit too much, and I think it came back to bite them. So we'll see what happens, but expect more change in Buffalo. I do wonder about Kevyn Adams, though. I really do. So we'll see there. And in Montreal, of course, we get a little bit more clarity on one of their main assets they're going to have at their fingertips to either use as a draft choice, which I don't think they really need, or as a trade asset, because we've talked a lot about Montreal's primary target this offseason will be to find a bona fide number 2 center, or somebody who can be a 1A under Suzuki. Either way, they need a top 6 centerman. Right now, you can't rely on Alex Newhook, I don't think, to be that guy. I think he's better suited for your third line. With Ivan Demidov coming in, they need a scoring type center that can play with him. Because ideally, you got Suzuki and Caulfield. They've had pretty good chemistry with Slafkovsky. It'd be nice if they could leave that line together and build a second line to give them another comparable secondary scoring, or primary scoring, really, and it's the same time, right? So, you've got, can Demidov thrive on a line with Patrick Laine? I don't know, right? So we got to see that. Either way, they need a centerman. I don't think Newhook is that guy. And Newhook and Laine, to me, just don't make the most sense. I honestly think that they're going to have an ability to make a trade here now, but the asset we're talking about is they get a little bit more clarity now on the first round pick that they gained in the Sean Monahan trade from the Calgary Flames, because that was a conditional pick for 2025. There was all kinds of conditions on there, whether they get the Flames pick, the Panthers pick that they got in the Matthew Tkachuk trade, etc. And now we know with the Flames, with where they're at, they're guaranteed not to finish in the bottom 10. So because one of the conditions was if it was a top 10, that it could be deferred, or they could get the Florida pick or what have you. But based on where Florida's at in the standings, based where the Calgary Flames are at in the standings, there's pretty much no chance now that those conditions are not going to move so that the pick is deferred to another year. The only really thing that could happen would be the Calgary Flames winning the draft lottery, because you can move up a maximum 10 spots. They're not, if they're out of the playoffs, which is looking like they will be, they're not going to be high enough to go all the way to number 1, but they could get inside the top 5 or 6 or so, depending on where they finish exactly, because you can move up 10 spots, right? So there is a slim chance that the pick gets deferred because of a Calgary Flames draft lottery victory. That's very, very, very unlikely, though, which means Montreal is going to have that Calgary Flames first round pick. And right now, it's looking like it's going to be somewhere around that 16th overall mark. The Flames are probably going to be the highest ranked team that's not in the playoffs, most likely. So it's going to be right around that 16 mark or so. It's going to have pretty decent value. So, we know that, like I said, the Canadiens looking for a number 2 center. We've heard all the speculation about what Ken Hughes is expected to do. We've heard about the possibility of trading a player like Arber Xhekaj. I don't know if they will or not. I think they have kind of mixed feelings over that. I think long term they see the value of having him, but at the same time, I'm not sure that, I guess it depends on how patient they want to be with his defensive game, because they like his ability to stick up for his teammates and his toughness, but he's been a defensive liability. So, how much patience will they have there with all the other young, promising D they have in their system? So there's possibility of him being included in a deal. I also wonder about the future of Kirby Dach. I don't know if Dach can be moved given his injury history and the fact he's recovering from another serious injury. But I would think at this point that the Habs would probably be very open to moving Dach if the team that they're trading with is open to taking him. So not to say for sure, but the first round pick, Kirby Dach, Arber Xhekaj, there could be other assets in there as well. They have other young pieces that may not be long-term Habs, whether it be Josh Roy or any others. They got lots of other young players here that could be included. But I suspect a package involving something along those lines will be something we see at the draft, with Ken Hughes targeting who that centerman could be. We've talked in the past how they've been linked to Trevor Zegras before. Will they go back down that road again? I'm not sure they will. As we talked about yesterday, they had heavy trade discussions with the Ducks last year at the draft, and then they backed off once they had Demidov available. I think they'd probably have preference on a different type of player. There was some wondering if they would try to get a guy like McTavish out of Anaheim. I don't know that Anaheim would want to do that, of course, but they probably don't. So I wouldn't get your hopes up over Mason McTavish, but it is the name that's been out there. Otherwise, it's tough. You look around the NHL and you see that if you can find an under 25 established centerman who could be a really good number 2 player, complimentary to Nick Suzuki, that would be what they're looking for. But it's not quite clear and obvious exactly who that guy is just yet, although there's been some articles and speculation recently over who they may target. So let me know your thoughts on all of today's news and rumors in the comments, and we'll talk about it further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.